First of all, our heart goes out for all the family members and friends of all involved in this terrible incident. As I can tell you now that we have found the wreckage. We confirmed that the wreckage has been found, and the search and rescue teams are now, it's turning into a search and recovery.
Well, he told me exactly where it had been found, and it's about 150 nautical miles. I think that's about 170-odd actual miles off the coast of Egypt, and it's around the interface of the Greek-Egyptian air traffic control area. So that's where he said it had happened. He would not go into any more details, exactly how much has been found, what distinguishing characteristics, but he did say, or who found it? Was it Greek authorities or Egyptian authorities? He said that news is going to be coming out as soon as we can give it out. But he said that they would immediately start bringing up whatever they, could in order to determine the cause of this, that he was sure they would find all the voice recorders, all the key elements of a plane that you need in order to be able to find out what caused this disaster. He said that he knew nothing and would not talk about the notion of what the Greek Defense Ministry had said in terms of a 90-degree turn in midair, then a 360-degree, and then plummeting so many thousand feet before it crashed. He would not talk about that. He also said that he would release, that the passenger manifest would be released publicly just as soon as all next of kin had been informed and notified. He said that would happen, at least all the notifications he predicted would happen by the end of this night. And so he assumed that the passenger manifest would be released post-haste. Regarding the security of the plane, when I asked him in detail what are the Egyptian rules, Egypt Air rules for security checks on all the flight stops, he said that each and every flight stop, the plane is checked by the cockpit crew, by the cabin crew, by the ground staff, by additional security personnel, as well as their then maintenance crews as well. So they have a security check and a maintenance check. And he insisted that all of those would be done in Paris and, of course, in Cairo, he said, before the flight took off. Regarding the rest of the leg, Eritrea and Tunisia, he said that was not applicable. At least that's what I understood from him, because that had happened, 24 hours or more before the Tunisia, Paris, and then to be Cairo leg had started. Regarding passengers and the crew on board, I said to him, look, I have to ask you this because we have had instances where plane pilots have been found to have caused the catastrophic disaster of various planes, whether it was German wings. We don't know what happened to the Malaysian air flight. Some are blaming, the pilot. And of course, in 1999, there was a Egypt Air that crashed off the coast of the United States. And he said, I understand what you're asking me, but our crew, he said, was entirely professional. I am a former captain. He told me this vice president himself was a former captain who had flown before with the captain of this plane. He said he had flown this captain before. He was his co-pilot in the past, and that he was incredibly professional, incredibly experienced, and that he was not prepared to even entertain the idea that this pilot might have been involved in any foul play. Regarding foul play, he said that he was not prepared to say that that was something that had happened. He said all cards are on the table, all possibilities are on the table, but he wouldn't even go there when I said that the aviation minister in a press conference had suggested that the analysis so far suggests a greater likelihood of a terror attack than a technical attack, and on the than a technical fault. And on the issue of technical fault, he said that this is a new plane for us. It's new in terms of the lifetime of a plane, which can fly some 20-odd years. This one was delivered, I believe, was made anyway in 2003, and he said that it was in good flight health and safety.
Did he say anything, Christiane, about the 3 security personnel who were on board that plane, what we would call here, were they air marshals in effect?
He didn't say, but when I asked him broadly about all the crew and would there be any possibility of any aspersions or any suspicions, he ruled that out totally. We know from flying planes in the Middle East, whether it's in Jordan, whether it's in Egypt, whether in other places, I've certainly flown on planes. All the planes that I've flown on have had security personnel on board.